The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the November 2020 CIECAST, The Future of EVs. I'm Paul Berry, Executive Director of CIECA. The Collision Industry Electronic Commerce Association, or CIECA, develops and promotes electronic communication standards that allow the collision industry to be more efficient. We also provide webinars like this one to help educate both members and non-members. Today's presenter is Mark Kaufman, Global Director of Electrification for Ford Motor Company. He leads the company's strategy for electrified vehicles and heads the Ford Team Edison, which consists of dozens of teams around the world working to bring electric vehicles, technology, and services to market. As we start the webinar, I want to remind you that there is no verbal communication between the participants and the presenter. If you have questions during the webinar, please type them in the question panel on the webinar screen, and we will answer as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Well, Mark, we're really thrilled to have you here. This is a very interesting topic and rapidly evolving. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the opportunity to talk at with the Collision Industry Electronic Commerce Association today and share with you a little bit of Ford's perspective on what's happening in the EV business and also a bit within our own products that we're planning on launching. If we can go to the next slide.
You can click the slides through, Mark.
Thank you. One of the things that we see is the EV industry is very much at a tipping point at the moment, and there's a number of factors that are going to continue to drive that. So using year to date, the EV share of the total industry is only at about 1.5%, but we're expecting that to tip up quite rapidly as we go through the decade, and that's happening for a number of reasons. The first is the costs for EVs are coming down. One of the metrics that we're tracking is the cost per kilowatt hour for the battery. The batteries still are a large component of the cost for electric vehicles. And then as the industry scales, the cost for those batteries are coming down. So you're going to start seeing more affordable price points coming into the market. The second is just choice. While there's only a handful of EVs offered today, we're expecting the number of products and the number of categories that electric vehicles are offered in is going to dramatically increase. There's been a lot of dialogue on charging infrastructure. Generally, the infrastructure is staying one step ahead of the sale, but we know from customers there's a bit of range anxiety about, am I going to be able to go on the trip? And as you see that EV sales number tip up, you're going to see the infrastructure actually stay one step ahead of that. So as customers become more familiar with charging and seeing the infrastructure growing, that improves their comfort level. And last, we've been doing a lot of work with just educating customers. When your day job is 100% tied to just electric vehicles, sometimes it's good to be reminded that there's still a lot of misperceptions about EVs today. We fielded a survey about 1.5 years ago, and it was really designed around Mythbusters and just understanding where the current state of knowledge is in the general public. And it's a good reminder for us that we have to keep working on educating our buyers. Some quick examples from that. One, a lot of customers are concerned about plugging in their vehicle and charging while it's raining. And in hindsight, that makes great sense because from a young age, right, we're taught not to mix electricity and water. So even though the systems are 100% safe, there's some of these concerns beyond range and charging infrastructure. We just have to continue to reinforce these products are safe to use. They're going to be exhilarating to drive, and we've really approached that within Ford. And Paul, help me understand. I'm looking for where to click on the screen so I don't have to keep saying next slide.
Anywhere. There.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So this is just trying to dimension for the folks that are listening in today, just on where Ford's internal call is at with regard to the growth in the industry. And from an OEM perspective, so if you're a manufacturer of products, you can get a sense of just how many products are going to be launching over the next year. So this is a mid-decade look at the number of BEVs or full battery electric vehicles offered within the industry. And we're expecting by 2025, based on public announcements and competitive announcements, that there are going to be about 100 products in the US market that are full battery electric vehicles. And then as you look across that graphic on the screen, that number is going to be as high as 350 products in China. So the customer is going from very few choices today to lots of choices. And you can see that number on the very bottom is the EV share of industry. So we're looking at the US by mid-decade approaching that 10% number. And we do see China and Europe having that number be a bit higher at approximately 15% share of industry. So what is Ford's approach? We had a big debate on this and a lot of strategic work done probably when our electric vehicle team was formed 3 years ago, which was designed to really accelerate Ford's efforts. And when we saw that many competitive products launching, we made a very conscious choice of we are going to play to our strengths. We are going to think about battery electric vehicles beyond just propulsion, meaning batteries and motors, and really focus on how to make these products even better in ways that customers truly appreciate. So that's, we're talking about amplifying attributes to really take these iconic brands and have them do more. Every automaker is looking at how to get scale. We've received some early questions about, we're currently looking at for the Mustang Mach-E, which you see on the right. We are purchasing and working with LG Chem as a battery supplier. And the reason for that is we don't have the scale out the door to be able to do things in-house. So you're going to see, I think, Ford and other manufacturers further vertically integrate as time goes on. And that's part of the ongoing business model innovation. And we did a lot of work on the Mustang Mach-E beyond just battery and electric vehicles, because the buyers of these EVs, especially in the retail space, are very useful and they're tech early adopters. So for that reason, things like e-commerce, which really don't tie to essentially the product itself, but we know the customers who are buying these products have a slightly different perspective on how they like to interact, and that digital experience is going to be amplified up in all of our products. So we've just had, the timing for this podcast is perfect. We've just had some big announcements last week with the intent to have a e-transit available toward the end of next year. So we're making about $100 million in total investment in our Kansas City plant to build that product. That plant today also makes the F-150 for us. We've stated a goal to be carbon neutral as a company by 2050. So we have a glide path on year-over-year improvements on how we're going to reach that. We've also announced that our full battery electric vehicle truck will be built at the Rouge plant right in our backyard here in Detroit. And that is a total investment, including some of the hybrid products that are launching right now, $700 million for those plant updates. And this is really going to be a continued growth mode for us. We are looking at having the e-motors and the transaxle. So you see that bottom right picture is our Van Dyke plant also in Michigan. And we are looking at vertically integrating and building those motors and transaxles in-house as part of our integration plans. So first and foremost, when I mentioned earlier this customer perception, a lot of feedback came in that electric vehicles are boring. And really, Ford's approach is we have to think beyond compliance. We really want to make sure that our products are truly exciting. It's not we're selling these because we have to because of zero emission requirements or CO2 requirements in Europe, but we really are trying to create compelling products that customers will actually love. And it's going to make this transition from current internal combustion engine technology into electric vehicles much easier and exciting for customers because they are going to absolutely love the products we're producing. So couldn't think of a better way to start than tapping into one of our most iconic nameplates, the Mustang. And there were really some unique enablers as part of the new Mustang, that Mach-E, that we were able to tap into. So for us, having that large battery right at the bottom of the vehicle really helps with a very low center of gravity. So we really wanted to deliver that classic design elements of the Mustang, but at the same time, It is a Mustang. We took that very seriously within Ford, that if it's got the pony on the front, the handling and the capabilities of the vehicle have to live up to the DNA. And that's really enabled by having a center of gravity with all the weight of the battery lower on the vehicle, that even though this is a SUV body style that has room for 5 adults, the center of gravity for this vehicle is only 30 millimeters above the current coupe, which is pretty amazing given all the space that you get inside the vehicle. We've talked about a total investment in our portfolio of $11.5 billion, and that does include the electric F-150, and we just recently launched the F-150 hybrid. Really happy that that truck with the hybrid is already starting to receive some industry accolades for the essentially the electrification efforts that Ford has put in place. And I mentioned great timing for this podcast because on Thursday of last week, we just announced the E-Transit. And as part of that launch, it's an all-electric car that can go nearly anywhere. And this is a case where, in working with our fleet customers, they've been asking for this type of product for a long time. As you start thinking about the delivery business growing, certainly with COVID, though again, in talking to customers, it's interesting for us to find that even customers are thinking about the products as they're getting delivered to their home, and they were indicating through the survey that they would actually be willing to either pay a premium to have those products delivered in a sustainable way, or expect a little bit longer in terms of the time that the amount they would pay for that service if they were delivered in a zero emission vehicle. Now, for us, and if any of you are working in the aftermarket parts of the van business, it was absolutely critical for us that it was zero compromises in the back of the van. And by that, we mean there have been some modifications done mostly by third parties where they're starting to put the batteries actually in the cargo area of the van. And not only did we want to make sure that the batteries are packaged in the chassis and out of the way of the interior, but all of the racks and bins that our customers use today, we wanted to make sure, again, this is all about trying to make this transition from conventionally powered vehicles into zero emission vehicles as easy as possible, that all the mounting points for the racks and bins and anything that a customer might have in their vehicle will seamlessly transition from their current transit van to the new E-Transit. Now, because this vehicle has an increase in technology, we want to make sure that the 4G modem on the vehicle is fully connected. We've made navigation standard on this vehicle, so again, making it easy for the driver at all points to use public charging if required. The discussions with customers and our research suggest that a lot of the charging is either going to be done at depots and at the driver's homes, but we wanted to make sure this vehicle was fully capable for any public charging, so that through the modem and the screen, we call it internally the human machine interface or the HMI system, so that center stack screen makes it very easy for any customer to find where chargers are located. It also allows for our Ford Commercial Solutions to really help fleet managers manage the product in their fleet, so they can understand things. If there's someone coming back from a second shift, did all of my vehicles get plugged in so they're charging overnight? And doing that in a very secure way with data protection. It also can assist with preconditioning the vehicle. So when the weather gets colder, as we're starting to get colder today in Michigan, I saw snowflakes coming down a moment ago, that you want that preconditioning to make sure that battery's warmed up a bit, so that the battery's in a state to give you the maximum charge, along with some of the energy that it takes to heat up the interior of the vehicle. Now, talking about this, because we have 35 years of commercial vehicle leadership within the US market and 5 years of leadership in Europe, this E-Transit is launching with many configurations available. We're not just doing parcel delivery service like a FedEx type truck, but we wanted to make sure that we had all roof heights and body lengths available. And that's true whether you're talking about a cargo van, a cutaway, or a chassis in terms of the cab. We do know there's demand for these products across that full fleet. And we want to make sure that our e-transit is available to all of those customers. So whether you're an electrician or plumber looking for a more sustainable way to get to your customers' homes, or whether you're looking at a delivery business, we have lots of opportunities to help our customers get the job done. So I mentioned a moment ago that part of this is making sure, especially for retail-facing vehicles, that because these buyers are younger than average, and a lot of them grew up with smartphones when we start talking about that millennial cohort group, that it just has to have experiences that make driving and operating an EV extremely easy. So connected experiences. A quick example that I can share with the group on that is it's not just a matter of knowing where those chargers are located. We want to make sure the customers who are driving Ford electric vehicles even know whether or not that charge port at that next exit is currently open or not. Meaning that if you're getting off on the highway to charge, you want to make sure that as you're pulling off, you already have some awareness if one of the chargers is physically unoccupied before you're getting off. So besides making it very easy to plan your trip, if you're doing that on a desktop or a mobile device, you can seamlessly transfer that with FordPass directly to the vehicle, so you don't have to re-enter information. So if you're planning in advance, and in my household, my wife's the planner, she would already have every trip planned in advance with where the chargers would be along the way. We've made it super easy to transfer that automatically to the vehicle. We do have Pro Power on board, so when we start talking about whether it's the F-150 electrified product or our transit van, you can actually use this exportable power. You do not require an inverter on that. So you can actually operate things like miter saws as part of your, again, rolling toolbox. You're able to either charge all of your tools that you're planning on using at your customer's home, or you can use that van as a mobile workstation area with that Pro Power on board outlet, 110 volts to actually power the tools that you need. We're looking at creative uses of that new space. So on the Mustang Mach-E, we have it's officially a front trunk, but everyone has now adopted to just call it the frunk, F-R-U-N-K. So if you ever hear a frunk and ask what the heck are they talking about, the industry is good at developing shorthand. So that front trunk is a frunk within our internal language, and I think that's starting to get escaped to our dealers and customers as well. And then one very important part, and this is all about, these products go beyond just batteries and motors, but having the ability to update the vehicle with over-the-air, meaning that the vehicle is now fully connected with our new electrical architecture systems. Not only can you update, for example, that Sync 4A screen that's in the shot on the picture, but you can also have other updates that are pushed out to the vehicle. So whether that be an update for the battery with regard to a charging protocol, we are able to have this car keep getting better over time. And as we're developing new capability, so one example is when the Mustang Mach-E launches, it's hardware enabled for driver assist technology, but that software package is actually going to be sold post-purchase, and the customer has the capability to download that to get truly hands-free driving, where you literally do not have to touch the steering wheel based in blue zone areas, and the sensor on our vehicle that's monitoring your eyes to at least ensure you're looking on the road, but that means you don't have to touch the steering wheel. So in addition, we talk about amplifying attributes. For the Mustang Mach-E, clearly fun to drive was an element. I mentioned a moment ago about the vehicle has to live up to the Mustang brand DNA. We made some discrete choices on the design of the product. So most electric vehicles want to be wedge-shaped. In order to get the range, the aerodynamics of the vehicle or the coefficient of drag is still extremely important. The challenge that the designers have is every car starts looking somewhat similar. So we've made some conscious trade-offs on the front face of the Mustang Mach-E that Mustangs always have a bit of a, whether our design team calls it a bit of a shark nose, or I love the description they use sometimes, or a fist punching through the wall. We've made some trade-offs on the design to make sure that it's still a strong front face on the Mustang, very consistent with the Mustang design language. You get the automatic benefits of a very quiet interior environment. We are looking, and this is from the U.S. Department of Energy, at about a 40% lower operating cost for an electric vehicle compared to a vehicle that's powered in traditional way. And our early findings on retail vehicles is the vast majority of customers are charging within their residence. That number, depending on which study you look at, is anywhere between 80 and 90%. But customers really come to love the convenience of just driving to the residence at night, plugging it in, and knowing they're essentially starting the day with that battery fully topped off to give them maximum amount of range on any given day. So part of our platform, a lot of effort being put into design for repairability. George Gadou's on the call with us, and George and I, in the very early days of T-Medicine, really wanted to make sure that repairability was taken into account on the platform. We are looking at having that common structure going across, so we are getting a battery cell stored going across, and we want to make sure that when we start working with our EV certified dealers and any repair, that we're getting them equipped with the equipment to service not only the first vehicle being the Mustang Mach-E, but a lot of that equipment then gets reutilized for our BEVs, given our desire to have a commonality. And most manufacturers, Ford no different, obviously is looking at reusing the motors. So maybe to give you an example, on the Mustang Mach-E, we have a very large motor powering the rear wheel drive. When you move to an all-wheel drive, you keep the rear motor in the back, and then the secondary drive unit is a smaller motor in the front. And more details to come, but when you move all the way up to the GT, you're taking two large motors. And those motors continue to look at a reutilization strategy across the other EVs as they launch. Now, Ford is working with other alliances around the world to develop their EV strategy. So the way I would describe that is our main platform has a certain bandwidth. Now, the great news is for the EV business is that platform has a much greater bandwidth than what you would have off of a conventionally powered vehicle. So if you're starting to think of vehicles that are Mustang Mach-E sized or a small SUV, and having the capability for that to go all the way up to a large SUV is a bandwidth that the product has the capability to cover. In some cases, and I'll use the example of our European business, when you start getting to smaller hatchbacks, that platform gets just outside the bandwidth of where we've engineered our core platform, and therefore we do look at partnering opportunities. And again, other manufacturers are all looking to get scale, so we've added some alliances as required to complete the product lineup. That's all part of that $11.5 billion invested. And we are an equity investor in Rivian. So the whole business model for Ford has really taken, I would say, a strategic look at how do we actually bring out a electric vehicle business. So this wasn't really taken on a product by product basis. There are some advantages. So we've talked a lot about the vehicle so far. Talked a little bit as we get scale and volume that there's going to be more insourcing for components. The manufacturing footprint, a lot's being done. So two things that are unique about electric vehicles is the actual line length of assembling the product is shorter, which means that you also now have capability to put more top hats and other designs on top of the vehicle. So we've actually got a great increase in flexibility on how to actually create products and plants beyond what we would traditionally have within conventionally powered vehicles. And we spent a lot of time as a team on the entire shopping experience, buying experience, and then use or ownership, going all the way back to 3 years. So thinking through what that service and repairability is like, already working through recycling plans for end of life and track and trace programs on the battery. We've really tried to treat this business very holistically to make sure that as we add products, that all these different products continue to work and grow on driving the scale for the business. So The Mustang Mach-E customer, a bit more unique, that they really had, and we called them the lovers of the new. So as we worked with defining who we're targeting for this product, and it's a little bit different. While we think some Mustang owners today who maybe had a new child added to their household might find that the Mustang Mach-E is a great product after that coupe, but we really saw these customers as being quite different. They really do crave new experiences and technology, and we had to make sure that the product delivered that for them. So you can see this great montage shot of the new steed we've added to the stable, so that you've got the Mustang Mach-E in the grabber blue in the front, and the existing coupe off in the back, and you can see the design language carrying through the product. Our design team did a wonderful job of having a very fastback look on the Mustang Mach-E, and that's all hidden with a black roof rail that really hides how much space is in the vehicle. So our vehicle programs director and chief engineer are both at about 6'3" and taller. Our vehicle programs director is quite tall, and they both sit very comfortably back in the second row. So I think we've got the best of both worlds with the design, something that looks very sleek and fast and lives up to the Mustang DNA, and at the same time, it is an SUV, so it's got about the same package space as the Porsche Macan. We had a little bit of our early rallying cry in the program, as we said, connectivity now is speed is not just about the 0 to 60 times that the product can accelerate in, which are quite respectful, but it's also about the speed of connectivity. So that large 15.5-inch screen that you see in the vehicle, we put a lot of thought into a very different type of software system. It's called Sync 4A, and how to make that extremely flat and behave much more like a smartphone. So the great thing about that is, and you don't see it in this particular shot, but in the main screen, there are 3 tiles that are always going to be visible on the bottom, in addition to the large screen on the top. And each of those tiles gives you the ability to command the next frequently used function. And this is an adaptive system that learns. So the more you use the vehicle, those 3 tiles keep changing to essentially the top features that you use, and that gives you partial functionality. And even if you happen to want the something that you don't use as frequently, that's on a carousel that you could just slide to the left to get more functionality. So there's not these layers of hitting a screen to go to a new screen and then hitting another button to get to a function. This is very flat, very user intuitive. We've just started providing the Mustang Mach-E to journalists. All of their drive impressions are going to be held until mid-December, but we've already gotten some really great feedback from everyone on how user intuitive the feature is. And you'll notice on the one lower part center of the screen is you do see one knob that's almost donut shaped with a volume and a on-off button below that. That is a functioning knob. Team had a really clever solution. If you think about the knob is actually adhered to the screen with fingers, and as you're turning the knob, it's actually using some of the touch sensitivity that you would have if you think about that touch screen almost as an iPad. So the teams also had some innovation on how to still provide a very quick, easy to grab volume control button without actually putting a mechanical connection on the screen. So key for us selling in the Northeast, we do have zero emission vehicle requirements. So making sure this all-wheel drive vehicle is fully capable on snow and ice was very important. The neat thing about not having a large heavy motor in the front is we can get near perfect weight distribution on front to back, which really helps with traction and handling. This just gives you a little better shot of the entire interior. The key is, so you're getting a vehicle that behaves very true to the Mustang DNA, and at the same time, you now can get five adults in the vehicle and still have space behind the second row seat. We will be coming out the GT version of this product. Has a little bit of a stagger. We had a little bit more work to do with repackaging that large motor up to the front. But your 0 to 60 time for this product is in the mid 3-second range. So you're really starting to get that type of acceleration you're getting very close to supercar level of performance with something much lower than a six-figure price point. So we think as people drive the products, and this is why having these products offered, we believe that this EV adoption rate is going to continue to grow. Anyone, and we've had a few people that doubted Ford putting the Mustang badge in on an electric vehicle SUV. And what I can share with you to date is for those that we've had a chance to actually put in the vehicle, their first question usually coming out as they're grinning ear to ear is, "I'm sorry, when did you say I can buy this again?" So the product really is exhilarating to drive. And the one thing I will even share on my personal experience that it still is just fun is there's no gear shifts anymore. This is all just continuous acceleration. So as you step into the vehicle, it's just one steady flow of acceleration. So the product really is exhilarating to drive. We've received some recent industry accolades, so it's fantastic that we won the 2021 Green Car of the Year award with the new all-electric Mustang Mach-E. And I mentioned that we also picked up that accolade for the F-150. Ford is very committed to electrification. We haven't shared, compared to some other manufacturers, we probably have not shared as much in that 5 to 10 year vision. We really believe the products launching will be the proof point. So our communications are starting a little bit closer to about a year before the products are launching. But as our products are getting launched, we're getting some great recognition for them as they're coming out. That rear-wheel drive vehicle will have a 300-mile range. It's still saying targeted. And it's targeted because we just literally, I want to say today, dropped the vehicle off to the EPA office for its final formal test. Though the team's confident that the number will start with a 3, which was very important for the program. We also want to make it very easy for customers to charge at home. So again, this is our job as a manufacturer to make this transition easy. So we do have a Ford connected charge station that we're offering to customers. That is a level 2 charger that can charge the vehicle about 30 miles for every hour the vehicle's plugged in. We want to make sure that through that Ford Pass app that we're really encouraging customers to plug in, especially as the weather gets colder. Every lithium-ion battery does lose a little bit of energy capacity in cold weather, so preconditioning your vehicle and plugging it in to keep that battery a little bit warmer is really going to help with range in cold weather. One of the approaches that Ford took is we wanted, knowing that there's a lot of anxiety about charging and charging infrastructure, we took an approach in working with a number of established providers, so examples of Electrify America and Greenlots. And rather than trying to create our own exclusive network, which would take time to build out, our approach was a little simpler, but done with a Ford Pass app that made this extremely seamless for the customer. We have aggregated a number of public charging networks that already exist, but we've aggregated them into a single network, all fully connected through Ford Pass, all with essentially set charging rates, so customers aren't getting what sometimes the walk-in rates for some of these charging stations, especially for the high power charging stations at times can be more expensive. So all with pre-negotiated rates to give our customers essentially what we believe to be the largest charging network available out of any OEM, all served through one app. And with that, we know that for those customers that do go on a trip, having a high power DC fast charger, the Mustang Mach-E, in as little as 10 minutes. So if you think about that quick bathroom break or a soft drink break when you're traveling to a longer destination, you can top up 61 miles in 10 minutes on top of the 300 miles range that our rear-wheel drive already delivers. This just gives you a sense of what that Ford Pass app looks like. So we've tried to make it as easy and seamless and hassle-free as possible. In fact, that with our internal rallying cry of we've got to make this so straightforward for customers to adopt that they actually find the process enjoyable. We've really shifted our entire shopping experience. So we did accept online reservations for the product. We did provide with COVID contactless test drives. And at the same time, we are working on an end-to-end process. So even though the dealer in the United States, the dealer in working with our dealers and partners is the one that's selling the product, you're actually able to buy online what we would describe as without negotiation, the price you see is the price the dealer's already listed to buy. So for that customer who wants a full e-commerce experience, we've enabled that. And then the next few slides, we're going to talk about what we think is a huge advantage of staying with Ford and the trust of Ford and handling your after sales. So 95% of our current dealer body of over 3,000 dealers in the U.S. Can actually handle the service requirements. We're at about 800,000 hybrids and plug-in hybrids we've already sold to date over the years. So we have 9,500 trained EV technicians today that are capable of working on that. And last but not least, when we went out to our dealer body to manage or assess the level of engagement, 2,100, so close to 70% of those dealers, all wanted to be EV certified to work on high voltage systems right at the launch. So with Mustang Mach-E getting into our customers' hands right at the end of the year, we already have 2,100 dealers that are already equipped to work on those products and actually drop the batteries and open the battery case on those high voltage systems. And then in addition to that, obviously very relevant to this group, just sharing with the team the Ford certified collision network. It is managed by Ford, and it's the only collision network that is certified by Ford. You can imagine if you look at all the yellow dots on the page, you can just see how comprehensive that network is. We've got over 2,000 centers already enrolled through September. And that network includes dealers, so essentially dealer-owned network, independent, and multi-shop operator repairers. So again, this is the benefit of working with Ford, that after-sales experience. If you're working with a new EV startup company, they're just not going to have the breadth of this repair network. Unfortunately, and maybe to this group, maybe fortunately, minor fender benders and accidents do happen. And our goal is to make sure that we're getting our customers back up and running as quickly as possible. And that this certified collision network fully meets all of the repair quality requirements, whether they be aluminum, EV, or advanced materials. And then as we start looking at our EV readiness, we did launch a EV certification requirement. Our goal is 100% of the FCCN centers to achieve that certification. That includes the training deliverables for that, and also the tools and the equipment required. So these batteries are big and heavy. There's also additional equipment in making sure that if you're opening the case, that things are getting put back together correctly. So our Ford certified collision network is trained and ready to go to serve all of our Ford vehicle owners right as the product is launching. And with that, we wanted to make sure on every one of these discussions, we always have a high level, robust level of Q&A. So that concludes the formal presentation, and we wanted to go to the team, and I've got some experts with me from Ford Motor Company. So we have a good, if I'm not able to answer the question, I have my friend online that we can have and make sure that we get all of your questions answered as best we can today. So with that, we will go to Q&A.
All right, thank you, Mark. Stacy Phillips, our marketing director, has been monitoring the webinar for questions. Stacy, do you have any questions?
Yes, we do. Our first question is, as EVs enter the market, what changes or challenges can be expected when refinishing, repainting these vehicles?
My initial reaction,
So Mark,
do you want to jump in, George? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think primarily it'll be the same type of challenges you see with advanced materials today. I would say that the one EV specific item would just be about extended periods of time at very high heat and the effect it can have on batteries. So, paint baking a car at super high heat for a long period of time. There will be guidelines given about that, but to me, that's the primary difference that there would be in terms of what I would say refinishing. And then Mark alluded to earlier that in those cases where a battery might need to be removed from a vehicle for a repair type situation, they are large and they are quite heavy. So we've had our EV dealers required them to be equipped with a lift table that'll allow them to handle not only the Mach-E battery, but as we look forward into our portfolios, other batteries, because the F-Series is a very large vehicle and has a lot of capability that requires the battery support. So that's also going to be a good sized battery. So that's the way I think that's the way I think about it off the top of my head. Mark, I don't know if that covered what you were going to say.
Said a little differently, batteries are like humans. They kind of like 70 degrees, and the further you get away from that, they don't like it as much. So the heat comment was spot on.
Excellent. Well, thank you both. We also have a question wanting to know if Ford is going to be selling the EVs directly to the consumer.
Within the United States, we have worked quite closely with our dealers, and in a way, and this is a case where from a customer, so even for the Mustang Mach-E, we are working on a end-to-end experience that's fully online. So a customer might perceive they're buying the vehicle from Ford, and I've noticed in talking to customers, sometimes customers aren't even aware of whether our dealers are Ford Motor Company personnel or not. But the online experience will be, I would say, extremely simple and easy, and we've enabled that really through the connectivity and working with our dealers as partners. So the process is seamless. You can buy online, though the sell of the product in the U.S. is working with our dealers as partners. So they are the registered, to call it the official seller of the product to the customer.
Thank you, Mark. We have quite a few questions about Ford's recycling or reuse plans for the batteries that are harvested out of end-of-life vehicles.
Mark, do you want me to kind of?
You can jump in on that one, George.
Yeah, this is an area that I'm closer to than Mark. So first of all, Ford, DNA includes sustainability and environmental. You see that in Bill Ford's activities and his advocacy in that area. And without a doubt, we're working with a lot of organizations, various organizations, that develop end-of-life options that align with that sustainability environmental goals. As I look at it and what we're working with in these organizations, I say the first step is the best thing you can do is keep a battery in the vehicles as long as possible, right? That's where they're most useful. And our serviceability strategy, which allows us to actually service at the array level. We can open the battery and swap out passive cells, we call arrays. Enables us to keep batteries in the vehicle for a long time, and it also enables a refurbishment strategy so that as vehicles get older, batteries can be provided that are appropriate to the vehicle age and at a lower cost. So refurbishment is a big element. Reuse in that is probably the number one thing to help with sustainability. But beyond that, we are also working with these organizations, including industry organizations that like NatBat and other industry that include recycling and OEMs, to enable and develop the recycling ecosystem and infrastructure to handle the vehicles and the end of life options. And that could include some repurpose, some second life things. And again, we're looking at those, but we're not providing any details now.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question, are the full EV models repair procedures found in the service manuals? Where can they be found?
Yeah, so our EV service information will be provided in the same context and the same routes that are available today for our regular internal combustion engine vehicles. So it's important to us that customers can have an experience and get their vehicles serviced in a way that's provides quality, right? We want to use OE parts, particularly when it comes to things like high voltage, but it's true across the spectrum. So that repair information will be consistent with the way we go to our business across the portfolio.
Great.
And George, maybe one thing to add on that too, not only are those repair procedures available, but even how we stock parts is very consistent with all of our national depot centers. So that part availability for the EVs is very consistent, leveraging that strong distribution that we have for repair parts available to the network.
Thank you. Can you discuss some safety precautions as it pertains to batteries involved in a collision?
Well, I'm not an expert enough to provide specifics. As we've done in the past with our other electrified vehicles, whether they be plug-in hybrids, or the previous battery electric Focus, there will be published information and guidelines on how to handle batteries that could be in a damaged state, or just even removal and reinstallation and the processes that go along with that with the right tools. And I think that's a big portion of why the Ford, the collision network, certified network, is so important, so that the people who are in the industry are able to handle the vehicles and the batteries safely, and the customers have a trust and an understanding that their vehicle is being repaired in a way that's provides the quality they're looking for and the safety they're looking for over time. So consistent with what we've done in the past, we'll provide that information.
Okay, thank you. We have some interest about how much an EV battery weighs, in particular the cars that you've mentioned today.
So, Mark, you can probably catch me right here. I think on an extended range Mach-E, we're looking right around 1,350 to 1,400 pounds. The regular range would be slightly lower than that. I have not seen specifications yet on the F series, and I think the Transit will be pretty similar to the Mach-E. So right now, 1,300 to 1,400 pounds, and it's likely to be a little bit higher for an F series.
Okay,
Agreed, George.
thanks. And what will the protocol be for pre-post type scans in the during the repair procedures? Will it be OBD2 or Bluetooth Wi-Fi?
You're stretching my my expertise here, but I do know that we do the OBD2 scan tool port will be utilized for our primary diagnostics. I just don't know if there's going to be a Wi-Fi component to go along with it. But the OBD2 scan tool is definitely used. And when we looked at the overall repairability strategy for this, we really strived to make sure that we used as much industry available tools as possible, both mechanical tools and I think diagnostics, because we need our network to be able to address the things that come up with customers, whether it's collisions and other concerns, and keeping the cost down for our dealers and for the industry to do that and make those tools as successful as possible is really important for the experience we need our customers to have.
And George, for the group, why don't you highlight, because I think you can count on the number of fingers on one hand, what those, using Mustang Mach-E as an example, is what those unique service tools are. So
we mentioned one earlier. There was we need a lift table that's big enough and has enough capacity to handle a battery safely. I think what many of the people on the call might think of as a transmission lift table may have some capacity, but the tabletop on itself is pretty small, and that could create issues. Other items are things like a smoke machine, where you're able to pressure test, what we call a smoke machine, but be able to pressure test the pack and make sure that it's fully sealed. And some test harnesses and charging. I think it's really interesting. One of the things you should be thinking about for those collision shops or those people who use these vehicles is you're going to have customers with bring you a vehicle, and you may need to charge it, whether it comes in with a low state of charge or just you need to be able to, as Mark mentioned earlier, precondition a car that's been outside. So thinking about your local shop infrastructure for level 2 charging will be important. So charging is a key point. And the other element that occurred to me in here, just for thinking about for the industry, is this convergence, not just of electrification, big batteries in cars, but this connected experience, both for the vehicle and the connected, but also for the customer who's connected. And if those customers are expecting a connected experience from the OEMs and the dealerships, how would that expectation look for a collision shop? So whether it's during the process of the quote or follow-ups or knowing the status of their car or other things, is the customer base that's being tech forward, how's that going to look for a collision industry in 12 months, 36 months, in mid decade?
Thank you. We have some interest in the thought process for naming the Mustang Mach-E and why the iconic Mustang name was used for the vehicle.
That's pretty mildly interesting. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, we've actually shared a bit of this externally. Normally, this is all kept behind closed doors, but it's such a fun story. We've actually shared it. So part of, when you've got 100 products all entering the market at the same time, everyone's going to be vying for attention. So having a positioning strategy for our product that could be unique and differentiated. When we're working on advanced programs, we always talk about unique selling proposition or points of differentiation. So when there's going to be 100 BEVs talking about great torque or quiet, we felt that we needed something that was a unique angle, and clearly tapping into Mustang was an approach that we thought could help our product stand out. But there was a critical moment, and it's interesting. Our chairman, Bill Ford, who absolutely loves the Mustang coupe and the growl of the engine, was very conflicted because he's also a huge environmentalist and cares a lot about sustainability. And this went all the way up to the chairman level to say, well, are we just leaning into Mustang a bit for the design, or is this going to be a full-on Mustang? And we are going to put the pony on the front and call it Mustang something. And his question to the team is, do we think this can be truly credible? Because I would say we took two steps at once. As we modified the body style from a coupe to an SUV with a fastback, and we also electrified it. And we really felt that the unique elements of a BEV with that great low center of gravity, when we decided that we are going to full on name it Mustang, we went back and worked with our performance icons team and dialed up the suspension and the tuning even more. We needed a little bit more stiffness in the front end for it to live up to the Mustang DNA. But as a team, we literally went through, here are all the things that make Mustang a Mustang, and here's how the Mustang Mach-E compares against that. And in the end, the leadership team felt that we could deliver on it. And as I said, anyone who's doubting maybe the Mustang name, you can write down my name. And if you don't have an experience, that we're going to have vehicles arriving at our 2,100 certified dealers. We'll all have test drive units available. But if you're doubting whether it lives up to the DNA, I would say hold your judgment until you have a chance to test drive it. Because so far, everyone who's questioned it after they drove the product, they came away with a big smile, and they understand the branding.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that story. Can you please expand on the battery warranty and data security measures?
Let me start, and then George can maybe add a little detail. So we know that there's a lot of concerns about battery over the life of the product, since it is a very expensive replacement component. So we do have an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and that does have written within that essentially an additional agreement on what batteries. If you think about your phone as a proxy, lithium-ion batteries do lose a little bit of their life as they age. And we've also included, I would say, a state of charge health toward the end of the period that we would also warranty, because that was very important to customers. Temperature control for these batteries is important. George mentioned that as part of the paint repair process, but that's generally true for whether the vehicle is going through a repair process or not. So, there's been one or two EVs that have been launched that don't have, one of them, the one I'm thinking of was air cooled, and that has major implications on the health of the battery over its life. So we felt, just to give customers peace of mind, having that 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty, along with a end state of charge health level, would reassure them that we're confident this battery is going to have a good long life. And that, you would imagine, as an automaker, we're doing that in the harshest of conditions. So high heat is challenging for the battery. So all of our testing being done at worst case conditions. So kind of soaking in the hot sun in Arizona for its whole life. So we expect most customers to be thrilled with the longevity of the battery. George, anything to add?
I think the only thing is just we can be specific that the battery capacity after 8 years on 100,000 miles would retain at least 70% of its original capacity. That's very competitive with the rest of the industry.
Thank you. We have time just for one or two more questions. What is the architecture of the Mach-E? Is it aluminum intensive structure or mainly steel?
I'm trying to think through. We've got weight still important, so there are some lighter weight elements on it, but the body structure, body in white, is still working generally with high strength steel. So if the person who asked the question is thinking about F series, the body in white or the body structure is still steel and not aluminum.
Excellent.
I believe, George, right? As I'm answering that,
yeah, no, I think you're right.
I'm double checking. Thanks.
Okay. And our last question, Jim Farley, your new Ford CEO, is looking into more vertical integration through building your own battery packs. Is this the way on the horizon or near term? What is the timeline for this?
Yeah, we haven't corporately, made any announcements with regard to timing. A lot of that I mentioned during the presentation. A lot of that comes with scale. We're launching our first Mustang Mach-E at the end of the year. We've got the E-Transit launching at the end of 21, and then the F-Series electric, full battery electric vehicle in 22. So you can start getting a sense of these products as each consecutive product launches. We are building up scale. So that's not going to be an immediate next year change, but as we're getting scale in, the strategy, it just makes more business viable than to insource, but no specific dates are announced.
Okay, thank you. We have quite a few more questions, but we've run out of time for today. So thank you so much. And Paul?
Yes, thank you, Mark. As Stacy said, we had a ton of questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but that tells you it's an interesting topic when we get that many questions. So thank you, Mark, and thank you to your team for a great presentation. With that, I just want to point out that we have, please check CIECA.com for a full schedule of our future broadcasts and to watch recordings of past webinars. Links are available under the CIECAST tab at the top of the page. In addition, CIECA has partnered with the Automotive Management Institute. Attendees of this webinar are eligible to receive credit toward a professional designation from AMI after taking a short quiz on the website. A link will be sent to all attendees. And finally, please follow CIECA's social media platforms to stay up to date on upcoming events and CIECA news. And that concludes today's webinar. Thank you.